I don't really have to do a lot of work here, but I wanted to watch this with you guys because it was submitted. So this is, maybe I'll have some stuff to say. I don't know. I always have something to say, don't I? I don't shut the fuck up. Well, let's talk about this anyway. We're gonna keep going. I'm not done with stuff. Sure, we've been here for 3.5 hours, or almost 3:18 right now. Well, we're gonna keep going. So this is a folding ideas video.
So I'm gonna tell you a little.
Great. Whoops. Great dude. Are we mutuals? I know I follow. Let's see. I know I follow. Not Dan Olsen. What's the at? Dan Olsen, right? What's the fucking at, dude? There it is. Foldable human. That's what it is. We are not Muchies. Well, Dan, you only follow 319 people. That's fine. Whatever. Cool. This is a new video by Folding Ideas. Dan's great. Really great follow. Do suggest. This is about celebrity chef Jamie Oliver, who is known in cooking circles as not very good. But I want to show you this video. So this is Dan Olsen talking about Jamie Oliver's war on nuggets. I'm sure that this will be a very, very good video, and I won't have a lot to say, unless I do have a lot to say. I don't know that this is going to go on YouTube, but it might.
So I'm going to tell you a little story about how you can use all the leftover bits to make food. And watch me. Meat and bone. Now, who would still eat this?
Jamie Oliver has an interesting relationship with chicken nuggets, and it's something I find deeply fascinating because it's this weird convergence of both an extremely political rhetoric and one man's personal pride. It's a conflict that has led the man to take on chicken nuggets in some form in every show he's made, to flex over them and display superiority right down to basically lying, like in the 2011 miniseries Jamie's Dream School, where he promises a room full of troubled teens that he can teach them to make nuggets better, cheaper, and faster than frozen nuggets.
Jamie Oliver, I thought he was up there with Gordon Ramsay, although I've never seen his content just as clear. Well, he's a celebrity chef. Although Gordon Ramsay is more respected, although Gordon Ramsay is losing that respect. But Jamie Oliver is... You'll see.
Yes.
And this is £1.90. It's 10 pence cheaper. I'm going to do it in half the amount of time. And this is... Do you think this is better for you or that?
No. All the way back in 2005, on the show Jamie's School Dinners, Jamie demonstrated the contents and production of chicken nuggets for a group of children, which is...
Why is Gordo losing it? Oh, because he he just... Gordon Ramsay routinely does hyper pretentious bullshit that is ineffective and not tasty because they're expensive ingredients or something. The grilled cheese thing is great. People in real cooking communities, and by real cooking communities I mean dudes that like dig into food science, dudes that are like, yeah, you could be a home cook, you don't have to be pretentious about it. There doesn't have to be this like fine dining experience. Food is food. It's about culture and feeding your family and your friends and enjoying stuff and learning how to build flavor and enjoying fresh ingredients where they're available. Like, but Gordon Ramsay is like, I spent £70 on this ounce of truffle. Like, you can get bougie with it, that's fine. But he's like always about that life, and he just starts to lose people over time. He's also just really kind of shitting the bed on some of his ideas.
As with a lot of food, kind of gross.
These are the kids that won't eat my chicken. You know, these are the kids that want their nuggets back. So I want to show them what's in their fucking nuggets. Then what they do is they add more chicken skin. That is how that part is made.
At the end, he asks if any of the kids still want nuggets, and all of them decline.
Anyone one of these?
No.
In 2010, on the show Jamie Oliver's Food Revolution, the production recreated the scenario with kids from Huntington, West Virginia, but this time when Jamie asks if they still want the nuggets after learning how they're made, all the kids say yes.
Now, who would still eat this?
Hilarious. It took one of those kids to break that social dam, though.
They all want those
That was a bad Ramsey accent. Oh, that wasn't even close to Ramsey's accent.
nugs. And who can blame them? Chicken nuggets are delicious. This bit is one of those clips that's in a sort of perpetual virality. Every few months it makes the rounds again with a new caption, new commentary, and new conclusion for the audience to draw, and it's one that fascinates me because Jamie's argument against chicken nuggets is just so comically bad. There's a lot of possible arguments against chicken nuggets, a lot of
I love taking chicken nuggets seriously, which is why I love Dan.
reasons you can consider chicken nuggets to be bad, and Jamie is making none of them. For example, you can argue that chicken nuggets are a product of a corrupt industry that is often deeply inhumane towards the animals that pass through it, making it immoral to enjoy the products of that inhumanity. Or you can argue that eating meat is intrinsically immoral, that we have, for the most part, moved past the need to get sustenance at the expense of animals. You can argue that the meat industry is exploitative of its workers at the mundane and merely engaging in aggressive anti-union practices and predatory hiring of migrant workers
Definitely
who
true.
can then be threatened with punitive use of the immigration system. And at the extreme end, buying slaves from Christian drug rehab programs. But Jamie's argument against chicken nuggets is that they're bad because they're made from the bad parts of the bird, arguing that there are the good, clean parts of the chicken that are appropriate to eat, and the rest of the bird, which is garbage. Take this bit, for example, which uses the grammar of television to suggest that even the kids see this plainly obvious fact.
Now, chicken wings are worth quite a lot of money. I showed them where all the nice cuts of meat came off the chicken. So we just pop the legs off, and then you're left with a carcass with all the ribs and the little bits of giblets.
By the way, the only way to make a fucking banger chicken soup is this part. Just toss that out there.
Blood and skin and stuff like that. What do you think happens to this?
Does he not like chicken skin? Because that's what's on all this stuff. That's interesting.
Get thrown away.
He'll have people sniff store-bought chicken nuggets and ask weird leading questions like, doesn't this smell dirty? But then no one ever responds because it probably just smells like a chicken nugget.
Now smell your nugget and then smell the other one. Your one should sort of smell quite clean.
That smells fresh.
And then the other one smells a bit dirty.
Jamie makes a lot of hay about mechanically reclaimed meat, and indeed, the entire thrust of his scare presentation with these kids revolves around the fact that the middle parts of the process, where they take the bad, dirty parts of the bird and process it into food, are kinda gross looking. The process involves taking
The process. Gotta love it. Dan's Canadian, right? Gotta love it.
the parts of the carcass that aren't prime cuts of meat, parts that still have a lot of good muscle tissue attached, a lot of connective tissue and gristle, which aren't very tasty but contain collagen and elastin, which breaks down into useful amino acids, leftover skin removed from cuts that are sold skinless, organs and bone marrow, grinding that into a paste, straining out larger solids, then using the resulting meat goo as an ingredient in food like chicken nuggets. And you know what? I will concede this fact. The stuff looks gross. I would not pipe tepid meat goo into my mouth. This does not make me hungry. But so what? Lots of food looks gross when it's raw or partially cooked. We literally have a popular phrase about the making of sausage for this exact reason. If your requirement is that food look delicious and appealing at all stages of preparation, then I'm sorry, that's really a you problem. So like I said, there's a lot of reasons to criticize the food industry, the meat industry above all. But what you can't really argue about the meat industry, and chicken nuggets in specific, is that they're wasteful. And this is
That's
something of
true.
the complexity of the issue. They definitely use all of the bird. Now, make no mistake, this frugality is in no way motivated by an ideological aversion to waste, but rather stems from maximizing the return on their product. Literally anything left over at the end of the process, they're going to try to find someone to sell it to. Mineral solids contain keratin and calcium, so dry it out, grind it up, and mix it with fertilizer. Organ proteins are used in pet food. Various soft proteins, fats, hair, hide, feathers, and other byproducts can be rendered into glycerin, gelatin, oils, lubricants, and pastes, which are used in food, cosmetics, pharmaceuticals, and industrial applications. It is notoriously difficult to go truly 100% vegan because products often contain other products that are themselves made in part with animal products, which is complicated because if you're going to accept that it's okay to eat animals and use animal products, which at the moment is the mainstream opinion in our society, then clearly if you're going to use the bird at all, you should use the whole bird. Now, while pink goo isn't the apocalyptic nutrient void that Jamie Oliver wants to paint it as, it is undeniably the lower quality stuff. I don't want to mislead you into thinking that frozen nuggets are something that they aren't. They're not great, but you already knew that. But like, it's not sawdust. It's still food. After taking the prime cuts off a bird, there's a lot of second-rate but usable nutrients left on and in the bones. This is why it was customary in ye olden days that after you ate all the easy parts off a roast chicken, you'd boil the scraps and bones to pull out whatever was left and create chicken stock.
Yeah,
At
brah.
least that's
That's what I said.
what you do if you're too poor to just buy another chicken. If you can't afford
Stare
to
Irina,
not
thanks for hanging out, dude.
extract every last calorie out of the bird you bought. Now, I don't want to suggest that Jamie Oliver is classist. I don't know the secrets that lay in the inner cloisters of his heart, but these arguments...
Does Dan know that he's really funny? I feel like whenever I've interacted with Dan, which has been limited in my experience, I feel like I don't know that he's aware that he's hilarious at all times. He's super funny. But in like I don't even know. You know what I'm saying though, because you watch this shit. I hope so, because he's like, he never makes a joke in the way that a lot of people make jokes. He just sort of delivers it perfectly every time. Very good. I'm glad that he has popularity. He deserves it.
Arguments definitely are. Oliver isn't arguing against nuggets because of what they contain or because they tie into complicated questions of morality and the ethics of eating meat, or even entirely because of their actual nutritional value. More on that later, but because of what they represent, which is a low-class diet. This is the language being evoked, the implication that low-class people are dirty and thus cheap and dirty are synonymous.
There's bits on it that are worth lots of money. The breasts are the most expensive part. It's the biggest and it's the white meat, okay?
The other thing that I want to talk about briefly is the rhetorical function of this clip. Something fascinating about it is that from the point of view of the production, from the
Red Army, thanks for the raid.
messaging
Hope your cast was nice.
viewpoint,
Watching some Dan Olsen.
there really
about chicken
isn't
nuggies.
a wrong answer to Jamie's offer of nuggets. Meaning that no matter
Nice,
what
Marina.
answer the kids give, I, as the conceptual author of the show, can use it. I can use the whole bird. If the kids reject the processed nuggets, they validate the assertion that nuggets aren't just low-quality cheap food made from leftovers, but are dirty and inedible. If the kids still want the nuggets, even knowing that before being cooked they were a pink slime, then that validates Jamie's superiority. The assertion that America is doomed, that the kids are broken, that there is a spiritual epidemic. And that is exactly how it's employed in the actual episode.
I mean,
You've done been raided by tankies. Uh-oh.
what's scary is that we've brainwashed our kids so brilliantly, so even though they know something is disgusting and gross, they'll still eat it if it's in that friendly little shape.
As a fascinating extension, the clip, as it makes its rounds through mimetic cycles, alternates how it's being employed based on what community it's passing through. It is shared in equal measure by people laughing at Jamie Oliver getting dunked on by some kids who want them saucy nugs, and people who agree with Jamie that this reflects a metaphysical illness in society, which is the source of the physical illness of obesity. Now, this argument is stupid, but it's also extremely popular. There is a
The communists are here? Oh.
pervasive belief in our society that poorness is a moral failing that the poor inflict on themselves, that the disastrous and growing class divides in the world are the result of a type of person who just loves chicken nuggets so much that they're not willing to stop being poor. Of course, that's all extremely wrong. The real answers are far more complex. School lunches suck because there's no money for quality ingredients. The staff are often poorly trained, if not unqualified, because there's no money for training or hiring qualified personnel.
That's true. The nutrition in schools is so fucking abysmal, and it really makes me mad. As like a home chef, it like bothers me a lot. And actually, my mom was a lunch lady for a little bit. She was a stay-at-home mom for a short period of time, like kind of in the middle. And then she went back to work, and she got a part-time job so that she could basically schedule around us. And she became a lunch lady for a little while. And just the work, like the stuff there, she was like, man, we do not have a budget for this. And it was like all crap. And obviously we were eating it, but... yeah, just like it's actually really easy. I think there was was it a documentary or was it just a video or maybe it was like a Vice thing? They were showing like, was it Vietnamese, Japanese? I think it was either Vietnam or Japan, which I know are very different places, but I can't remember. I'm trying to remember the food that was being eaten. I think it was Japan because there was rice balls. Anyway, doesn't matter. They had it was definitely Japan. It was a school in Japan. Because now I'm thinking about the lady talking. It was definitely Japan. She was talking about how they have a chef for the school and the actual, because they source locally and they do fresh food. It's actually cheaper per student to give them a real nutritional meal. Now in America, you can't really feed kids balls of rice. We don't grow up with that. Maybe we would be able to. Because obviously rice is cheap and it's high in nutrition, but we can do that with potatoes. Because potatoes are incredibly versatile, obviously, and super nutritious. I don't think people realize how you can live off potatoes, not because of the Martian, because of the actual chemicals inside of it. Although I love sushi rice. It's one of my favorite things in the world. So I would love us to adopt the rice ball as part of American lunches. But nonetheless, the point is, they got a routine, sort of high quality, homemade, vegetable high, like nutritional meal at school every day for free. And these were just little kids eating. Fuck, it was like a whole bento box of like there was rice, there were sort of like steamed and blanched crispy veggies, and there was some sort of chicken thing with a sauce that I can't really remember. But it was like more food and then they had like fruit on the side. There was more food there than I had ever seen on a school lunch, even in high school. Like unless you paid extra money or something. But it was wild. Like we had like cold iceberg lettuce in a thing. We had ranch or we had like Italian dressing in the like the big cheap stuff. You'd ladle it on there, and then we had ketchup, we had mayo, we had mustard. And that's kind of the end of the salad bar. To call it that is strong. But they did offer a bag of iceberg lettuce that you could pick some iceberg lettuce and put on your plate. They had $1 fries, and we had like the shitty school McChickens. And then we had hot turkey gravy, which was just and school mashed potatoes. Holy shit. I lived in Michigan my whole life in school. I live here now too, but we have potatoes all over the place. Buy some potatoes, boil them up. Instead of this mix, they're cheaper. Potatoes are cheaper. It's so weird. Bumble Homestead with 100 biddies. My kid's school district has been sending out emails asking for volunteer cafeteria workers. Volunteers. Just wild. Why don't we just fund this shit?
There's no money for hiring qualified personnel because of a belief that school lunch lady is a meaningless, trivial job where you slop food at children and not a position where you're expected to serve food to several hundred people in a mere 45 minutes. The logistics don't magically get easier just because the patrons aren't old enough to buy cigarettes.
Yeah,
there's no money for
wild
quality
view.
food because there's no political will to allocate that money, and there's no political will because of all sorts of messed up priorities, including the belief that poorness is a self-inflicted problem. Why, that sounds like a vicious cycle, doesn't it?
I like that said poorness in the caption, but poorness, like being poor, is the word. Do you remember Cheese Stick Day? We didn't have Cheese Stick Day. We had Stuffed Crust Pizza Day.
Could address this complexity, and in fairness, Jamie Oliver hasn't strictly ignored this, even as he's drafted lunch menus that would drain an entire year's budget in a month, but it's a lot easier to look at chicken nuggets as a thing that just happens to be in proximity to the problem and blame it for everything. Back to Jamie's dream school, Oliver promises that he can make nuggets cheaper, faster, and better than the store-bought nuggets, and it ends up exposing a lot of the charade.
And this is £1.90. It's 10 pence cheaper. I'm going to do it in half the amount of time. And this is, do you think this is better for you or that? No.
Now, to a degree, he's not strictly lying. If you have a very well laid out kitchen, all of the ingredients, a familiarity with the recipe, and confidence in your tools and technique, then measuring from the moment you start to when you start eating, you can probably make fried chicken strips faster than an oven can heat up a box of tenders. And the recipe he gives here, I mean, it's lightly seasoned fried chicken. Probably tastier than most nuggets as long as you make it right. And you know what? It might even cost you less by weight than the most expensive box of chicken in the grocery. More than twice as much as the cheap box, though. Just for the chicken breast, not including the other ingredients. Also, this isn't really that much healthier. It's still got plenty of salt. It's still fried in oil, but also healthy versus unhealthy is really a terrible way of conceptualizing food in the first.
So glad he was saying this. I was going to say something very similar to nutrition. Like, you can eat a certain amount of like chicken nuggets and still be very healthy. I'm glad he's getting into this.
First place. This is actually a persistent problem with Oliver's version of healthy eating, which really isn't driven by actual nutritional value. He still uses a lot of sugar and salt, but is better conceptualized again as clean versus dirty. Things with lots of listed ingredients are bad, things with fewer ingredients are good, regardless of what those are.
Talk out loud, out loud.
3, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 40. 44.
Okay. How many ingredients in there, guys?
So he's not lying, but the whole exercise requires so many caveats and so much deck stacking that it is disingenuous. It's just an extension of the argument that poorness is the result of things like food choices, rather than food choices being largely dictated by being poor.
Exactly.
I mean, one, you're probably not buying the $16 box, you're buying the $7 box. And you're not coming home and heating up $2 worth of mechanically reclaimed chicken strips because everything else in your life is going great. The biggest hole in all of it, of course, is the issue of time. With the stacked deck, the linear time is about comparable, but what's not comparable at all is the actual amount of work. I mean, it's so self-evident that I feel insane even pointing it out.
True.
Jamie's fried chicken bites are good, but you spend the entire time making fried chicken. Plus, it generates a huge amount of mess that you will then need to clean up. Food prep is extremely time and energy intensive, and it's maddening that so much of the hay about healthy eating relies on pretending that it's not. So the whole thing is an argument that displays such a fundamental lack of understanding about why people eat what they do, and it's a dangerous argument because, again, it's a popular argument, and it's popular with the kind of people who write and pass laws. Seemingly every day there's another proposal for a law to heavily tax unhealthy food or arbitrarily remove things like soda, french fries, and chicken nuggets from the already asinine list of things food assistance can and can't be spent on. Food is an almost unfathomably complex subject, and there are very real issues of public health and ecology tied up in it. People broadly eat what they have access to, and access is dictated by class, and class in our society is so very often dictated by race. It's about free time, stress, how far away you live from a grocery store, whether or not you live in a neighborhood where the freshest vegetable is the lettuce in a Big Mac. It connects to problems with jobs, wages, the physical design of our cities, the priorities of our politicians, and the incentives of our economic system. It's a big, intensely complex problem, which is why it's ultimately a lot easier to just be a stooge, to go on TV and blame the audience for having bad taste. Like, no, you're making the nuggets wrong. You're making dirty nuggets. Stop making dirty nuggets.
Tendies by Hot Dad. Yeah, we could get into a lot of stuff. This is why I try to talk to people about cooking at home. I think it's an important skill to learn because obviously nutrition is important. And a lot of us do rely on the bad chicken nuggets. That said, if you're fucking poor, dude, I've been poor. You eat what you can eat. There's no reason to feel like you have to like do anything other than just survive. Although I don't think that should be our fucking bar. Decommodify survival necessities. But I do think that you should be able to cook. In fact, I think there are some things that are way cheaper if you can make the time for it. Homemade bread is a great example of this. I just made some more bread tonight. By the way, if you haven't seen it already, because I haven't told you enough about my bread. But, you know, I mean, you know, it is what it is. Sure, I made those tonight. No big deal. But they cost me a total of maybe like 14 cents. They're really cheap because once you have the flour, I mean, it's just water, yeast, salt. In this case, some Cuban bread, so lard. But I already have that, so I mean, like, it's incredibly cheap. They're soft like Subway bread. I'd say it's much closer to Jimmy John's bread. In fact, I'd say it's pretty close to Jimmy John's bread in general. It's nice. It's really, really good. Yeah, thick. I mean, I guess they're thick. These are like subs. So they're really good. I can go grab you half while I chew on it. Here, I'll grab you. I'll go grab you one. I'll grabbies. Got my bread. All right. So, here's the bread. So here's a cross section of the bread. Looking pretty good, you know. You can see this little separation here that you've seen on all sorts of sub bread in the past. A little line on top. As you can hear, it's a nice solid sort of thick piece of bread. It's spongy, but it pushes back like sub bread. That's good. That's what you want. The outside it doesn't like crunch through necessarily, but like you can rip it off in hunks. Good fucking bread, bro. Super cheap and really, really good. It'll last for a few days in your house. Why don't you make hardtack? It's actually not French bread. This is Cuban. French bread's a little bit different. It requires a little bit more manual time, I guess. But, yeah, it's good. Could use a little more salt probably next time. Maybe a little more sugar if I want it to be just like Jimmy John's. But straight up, like, really a genuinely nice piece of bread. Cut it with a bread knife. Made a sandwich earlier. Yeah, I did. I could eat this all day, every day. But it's really cheap to do that. And I only spent like, now I have a stand mixer, but you don't need one. I only spent like, I'd say half an hour total, like working on it. The rest was waiting.